Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see you, and I'm glad we are all here to learn something. Today, I wanted to talk to you about building relationships with the educators that you'll be working with. But first, what is the purpose of an instructional coach?
As you know, the purpose of our job as an instructional coach is to work with these educators to improve the classroom instruction and increase student engagement and learning. While it may sound super simple, it's easier said than done sometimes.
When working with educators, there could be potential roadblocks. Let's take a look at them now.
Instructional coaches can encounter a variety of problems when trying to work with educators, especially when some educators might feel overburdened or maybe even suspicious of you because they think that you are judging them when maybe you're just observing them, trying to give them feedback.
So, what is the importance of building relationships with our educators?
In order to be successful when working with your educator, it's important to build strong and trusting relationships. When there's rapport between you and your educators, they are more engaged and successful in their learning. Today, I'm going to be giving you a few strategies in order to gain a strong working relationship with your educators.
Number one, getting to know each other.
Some of our instincts as an instructional coach may be to enter the initial meeting and get straight to the nitty gritty and use your authority and your expertise to tell them things that they should or shouldn't do. However, it is super important that you go into this initial meeting trying to get to know the educator, especially how they think, their personality, and what their goals are. Let's take a look at what that might look like in a real situation. Hi, Mr. Trinidad. It's nice to meet you. I'm Miss Kamano.
Hi there, nice to meet you.
As you know, I'm the instructional coach here, and really my main purpose is just to help you in whatever way that you need.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
Great. Since today is our first meeting, I don't want to overburden you or take up too much of your valuable time. So I thought it would be great to get to know you and maybe some of your goals for the year.
Well, I thought you were going to come in here and start bossing me around and telling me things I need to do or should be doing.
Not at all. Like I said, I'm just a resource for you in whatever you need. In order to better help you, I'd love to get to know your style so I can customize feedback or just resources for you. As you can see from that scenario, the educator seemed a little bit hesitant at first because he might have thought it would be a boss and employee sort of situation. However, he seemed to open up and become more relaxed when the instructional coach showed that she valued his time, was there for his needs, and wanted to get to know him better.
Number two, respect, patience, and interest.
Another strategy for building relationships with your educators sounds obvious, but it is to be respectful, show patience, and take the time to show interest in their success at that moment as well as in the future. When educators feel rushed or that you don't truly care about their successes, they're less likely to want to engage with you and less likely to get anything meaningful out of your conferences. Let's take a look at what that might look like. Thinking back to your goal, I want you to take a moment to reflect upon how you think that lesson went before I give you any feedback.
Well, based on the goal of student engagement, I guess I felt like it just really stunk.
Why would you think that?
I felt like I lost control of the students when we were reading aloud as a class, and some of the students were reading much slower than some of the other students.
That's a great reflection. I would agree that I observed the same thing during the read aloud section of your lesson. Another thing that I noticed was approximately 32 out of the 36 students were actively engaged in all the other activities throughout the rest of the lesson, which is great. Maybe we could work together to create an activity that still has students reading but at their own pace. That way they might stay focused longer. What do you think?
That would be great, but I have no idea where to start.
Don't worry, I can compile a list of various resources that may better engage your students, and at our next meeting together, we can review them together and you can select one or more that might fit your personality and your students' personality better. As you can see from the scenario, the instructional coach didn't automatically tell the educator what he should or shouldn't do. Instead, she respected his thinking or his reflecting process and took interest in helping him meet his goals that they created together. In addition, she did not force any resources upon him. Rather, she was allowing him to choose resources that would better fit his own teaching style.
Now that we've looked at two different strategies for building rapport and trust with your educators, let's take a look at what is feedback.
While building relationships is critical, communicating effective feedback for the educator is also really important. But what is feedback exactly? While most of us might think that feedback is advice or praise, feedback is information about how the person is doing in regards to reaching their goal. The goal of the feedback is to build a change in teacher behavior.
Number 1, providing effective feedback.
In order to provide effective feedback, it must be specific and actionable. By having actionable feedback, it requires the educator to reflect upon their feedback and enact a change rather than just passively thinking about it and doing nothing. In addition, knowing the goals beforehand allows the instructional coach to give goal-oriented feedback so that the educator stays focused on taking strides toward that specific goal. Let's take an example of what this might look like. I wanted to talk to you about how you felt that class went, my observations, and future plans. Does that sound okay with you?
Yeah, that sounds great. How do we start?
First, based on your goal, how do you feel that the class went?
I definitely thought that the students were engaged when we were reviewing last night's chapter with Kahoot, but then I noticed that some of the students started drifting when it came time to read the next chapter aloud and analyze it together.
Great observation. When you were doing the Kahoot review, all 36 students were actively engaged. The students seemed to really enjoy that activity while reviewing. However, when it came time to read out loud as a class, approximately 27 out of the 36 students were actively engaged. Why do you think the number of students actively engaged declined from the first activity to the second?
Well, the first activity was a game and competitive, which the students liked. I feel that maybe some of the students were less engaged while reading aloud because it didn't include technology or they thought it was too slow.
I definitely agree with your reflection. I know that you have upcoming reading scheduled into the next week's lesson plan, so I'd like for you to come up with a plan to try and actively engage the students in the reading aspect using what we learned today. As you can see from that scenario, the instructional coach allowed the educator to reflect on his practice before noting her own observations. She gave her observation that included data that focused on the end goal, which was to have students engaged at all times. In addition, she gave the educator an action plan, or a goal to accomplish that would get him a step closer to his real goal.
Number 2, providing effective feedback.
In order to give effective feedback, an instructional coach should give timely feedback to make it truly effective. When people receive immediate feedback, they show a notably larger increase in performance. Let's take a look at what this might look like in a real situation. Now that you've just finished your lesson, would you mind spending a little time with me to reflect on how it went? That way we won't forget.
Good idea. I have so much on my mind throughout the week. Doing it now would be the best.
Great. So tell me how you felt about the lesson in terms of the goal we're focusing upon. Feel free to include any details or any data. As you can see from this scenario, the instructional coach and the educator were going into a reflection and feedback session immediately after the observed lesson so that the material would be fresh in their minds, especially when it comes to reflecting upon data.
Thank you so much for taking your time to learn something new with me. Stay tuned for a list of references used to create this slideshow.